one thing that this chart, I wanted to go back and ask you, because really, they don't seem to have we gotta take out the money that should have gone to preservation. So by now, it's gonna be years of the full budget.
Well,
yeah, that's fair.
How well you guys can walk at high heels.
Yeah, that is important. This is your body.
All right, good morning. Welcome. It's 9 o'clock, so we will get started. Welcome to the regular business meeting of Fort Clark Springs Board of Directors. We will start with the pledge. Do a moment of silence first. And the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, we do have all 5 directors, so we have a quorum. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes from the July 23rd, 2022 meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve? Okay. Second? Okay. All in favor? Unanimous? Do we have any secretary's correspondence?
I don't think we.
Items? Okay.
No, there isn't.
Okay. And the treasurer's report?
See, our motel revenue for July was $31,792, which is down a little bit from June, but with the pool, it's not down much. Without the pool, it should be down more, but it's not, so that's good. Our total income for July was $175,981. Our total expenses were $229,422. So we are at a net loss of $53,441 for the month. Year to date, our total income is $2,008,131. Our total expenses is $2,075,971. Our net loss is $67,840 for the year. Preservation, oops, I got the wrong one here. Plexus Preservation has $25,557.61 allotted to them, and that is it.
Okay, and the major expense line item to produce that $53,000 loss is the fact that this is 1 month where we have, there's, how many months of the year do we have 3 payrolls?
Yeah,
So 2.
2 months of the year, you got 3 payrolls.
Okay, and this is one of them.
Yeah, July and March, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a,
Yeah, this year it's July, next year it'll be June. So.
Okay. And year-to-date budget-wise on compensation, we're below budget.
Yeah, our payroll as far as budgeting was below the payroll, above last year, but below budget.
Okay. Lisa, is that all good?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? We'll move into committee reports. Airport. Nothing from the airport? Okay. Architectural? Yes, it is.
Since the last board meeting, we have approved 4 permits and we have issued 7 violation letters. And we've come up with a system to track those violation letters so we know if the stuff's taken care of and when. And I've given you all our checklist for permits that we'll discuss later.
Okay, thank you. Golf, I believe we have some particular reason.
This is dated August 16th from Katie. The golf committee has spent $11,576.52 on golf course expenditures so far this year. We continue to pay out $600 a week to Fort Clark Mud for water to save our greens during this drought. We will continue to buy water from Mud until our money runs out or we get some relief in the way of rain. Everything the golf committee does is for the betterment of our course. Our next scheduled event is the end of the month on August 27th, barring any unforeseen circumstances. Respectfully submitted, Katie Brown.
Thank you. Preservation.
As most of all y'all know, we're still on summer hiatus, but I will give you an update on the stuff that I've been following through this summer. We've definitely finished one of the restoration jobs on the service club. We're replacing the bad window sills on the northeast and south sides, patching bad wood and repainting it. And actually, I think Service Club's looking pretty good right now, superficially. There's still got problems. Like all these 6 buildings always have something wrong with them somewhere. But and for the future, this will probably be next year sometime. We're probably going to be looking at maybe replacing the front doors with new closers on them, so that we don't lose all this air conditioning that we just fixed up on it. At least conserve the air conditioning in the building. The Post Theater we finished the preliminary work on it, and we know that there's all kinds of issues there that I would probably like to discuss in depth at a later time here, if you don't mind, because it involves the theater. My 2 predecessors, I've talked to both of them, and the theater has always been a problem area because it's kind of a complicated building in a way, and there's always been a lot of maintenance on it, and probably some of it is maintenance that there's usually a lot of discussion on. So I'll save that for later.
Sure. Thank you. Recycling? All right. We're in your part of the show now, so take it away.
Can I just ask a question about
Sure.
the agenda? I didn't hear the general manager report. Are we not doing that today?
We'll get back to that.
Oh,
I apologize.
Yeah,
You take the best for last.
I meant, no, here is the best. I'm going to tell you amazing news. Recycle got $2,126 this week, and that was from the June June shipment. And I tell you, I've been waiting for that check for a while, so finally. Shipping was not charged, which is another amazing thing. What happened was Keep Texas Recycling, it was told that our shipping prices from Waste Management was going to go up. And it was at the last minute, so she argued with them, et cetera, and so we didn't get a shipping charge, which is great, because that's like 600 something. So that's why we got, and of course all of this, thanks to the volunteers, and especially Joe Alaknis, and so that's great. We had 4 bales of water bottles, yay, and which made a big difference, and a big amount, I'll tell you, 0.63 of a ton of aluminum. So that's the huge, both of them, big money. The aluminum for a ton got us $1,400. All of that, all of that is like, oh, this is great that we sent it June 3rd, because since the prices have gone down. So you never know. Every month it's a different price. So we were just lucky. So that's it.
Excuse me, can you remind us what we do with that 2,000 that you get?
I give it to the general fund, I assume. I give it to Mr.
It's a
Peters.
line item. Actually on your P&L, is landfill.
Do we invest some of that money back into recycling, like boxes and whatever else we need?
We pay expenses. Everything's invested somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, recycled so far. I think we may have bought baling wire. That's about all we charge. So, yeah.
I mean, you have to realize that everything that was just sold was all picked up by our staff on routes around here and compacted by our staff also, and the volunteers do so much more that makes it profitable, but there's a lot that goes into it to get it there.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, Les Morris Restoration Project. There's nothing new to report. Community Council did not meet. We don't meet July and August, so September I'll be giving you a report.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And the recreation?
Recreation is from Sherry Newman.
Okay.
Grand opening for the fitness center will be October 1st of '22. Future plans, resurfacing the basketball court, lighting, metal roof over basketball court, buying more equipment. Adult center will become the activity center for teens, planned on bringing in games, hokey table, pool table, indoor basketball, arcade game, foosball, ping pong, that type of thing. Arts and crafts, movie nights, and video games. Future plans for swim park, new barbecue pits, beach volleyball court, future activities for adults, plan on getting more pool tables redone, or getting them redone. Horseshoes, cornhole, bingo, loteria. If anyone has ideas for activities for adults, please let me know. I plan on bringing back dances at the pool. These future plans will not happen all at once. It will take time as it does cost. I plan on having different events throughout the year that all proceeds will go to these future plans of making Fort Clark Springs fun and enjoyable for members and guests. 5K run on October 1st. Proceeds will either go to the new piece of equipment or towards the court. Each event I will let you know exactly where the proceeds will be going towards. My goal is to have activities for all ages. New fitness center hours starting August 21st. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that's the end of that report.
Alan, this takes care of, you're gonna remove 3 things off my list.
Just put 3 things back on.
Okay, we'll go back to the general manager's report now.
Okay. Well, this last week I spent 3 days or 2 days in San Antonio at the Texas Nursery and Landscaping Expo. Taking on one day 8 classes with different aspects of Texas ag and things like that. Most of them had to do with water conservation efforts, irrigation, and looking into trees and grasses that can be reintroduced to our landscape, taking it back to mostly native Texas plants. Also, there was a trade show there that I went and really researched a lot of the tree providers in the state of Texas and getting prices. So that's what I'm working on as far as getting the trees that we need, hopefully deliver in October, November, but preparing a major list now on what we need and what we need to find to get the money to do. Most of all the interesting classes, and Travis was even, the one thing that the water conservation area, the area that surprised me the most was the amount of water you can save from your condensation of your air conditioning. And that's one of the major things out there now that people are doing as far as conserving water, and especially in our situation on how much air conditioning we use. I think you'll and I'm trying to get more information from them on how it can help us out. But, you know, it was a very informative thing. It probably gave me more information than I could absorb in that much time. But I think it's going to help us out in the long run. At the same time, I talked to Texas Ag, a lot of other people there to try to get some free work and ideas from them and helping us out in the future, especially in things like doing the Master Gardener class and the Master Naturalist class here in Fort Clark. Our golf committee did purchase the water, and that probably got us through at least 2 weeks of really bad drought, and it kept our greens up and alive. We had about 2 inches of rain last week. Unfortunately, the rain that hit here yesterday stopped at the Scales Road and did not go to the golf course, so they didn't get any water out of that. Yeah, I mean, it just stopped. I mean, I thought, all right, this is great. And I went out there and it was just dry as could be. Stephen and Domingo have been really cleaning up the maintenance area and trying to get things. And we're finding things that were out there that I'd heard they were there. If you look at the golf course, there's some low areas that you have a lot of Bermuda. And actually, we have a sod machine out there. I don't know if it works, but it's out there that could actually help us resod some of our own areas from areas that we have excess sod. So, you know, that's something we can work on our own and try to recover some sod on our own besides just buying it. The HVAC system in the service club has gotten used 3 times now, and I think has been an amazingly huge success. Doing all the duct work and everything, I have not had just constant complaints that it's so hot, and obviously it's still hot out there, so evidently what we did is what needed to be done. The motel revenue, although it's down a little from the last month, I think it was $31,000, we did just get a group of game wardens that will start coming in here in September that will pick that up. The DPS has started coming back in. And if you compare to last year, our revenue in the motel is $200,000 up, just in profit. I mean, last year it was barely making it and break even. This year it's pretty much what we're running on. I mean, that's what's made the profit that needed to be made. I think it's going to pick up actually. I mean, this is even without having a spring down there to bring people in here. This is just basically a lot of DPS officers that have helped us out. I mean, that's what's made the difference. I do want to thank all the volunteers that have gone walking through Las Morris Creek and picking up the trash and putting on the side, because I think we're going to get some rain that may make it impossible for us to do the work we're doing now in the future. So the cleanup we've done is really cleaned it up, especially from Red Bridge on our Scales Road on down. From this area here, from the spring on down to Red Bridge, we still have a lot of work to do, or Scales Road, we have a lot of work to do. But we've cut a lot of the trees out, there's just so many of them, we have not had a chance to get them all. The volunteers, Ms. Loftus and a lot of students did a lot of that work, so I want to thank them. Our accounting task force has gotten off to a good start compared to, I have not finished their office to be able to work out of. But what's been done is, I'm very, very optimistic we're going to get what we need done finished before the end of the year. I think they've identified a lot of the areas that we need to really focus on. Jim's been doing it. Alvin's going to be working with our accounting department this week. And Chris has found so much stuff going through all of our records that, I mean, we found the manual for recreation from 1971, which just one of the most amazing, I mean, it was amazing what they had planned for here.
I shared it with Sherry.
Yeah, I mean, it's really gives you a lot of ideas of what can be done. So, you know, we're actually getting to the point that somebody comes and asks me for the history of something, I go, well, I know it's around here somewhere that I can almost go to the right file. I can at least go to the filing cabinets it's in. Now, finding the right one, I'm not there yet, but we can find a lot of the history and understand a lot what went on and what the plans were. And that's helped out a lot in our decision making. The adult center, you'll see a lot of cars there right now. We did rent that to Paragon for an office space, as well as they are doing training classes and job fair for some of their security jobs, and that will go through November or December. So that's why you see all the cars there. And that's really what we need to have that there for meeting space and things like that. Recreation manual. Trees, I'm going to be marking and doing a final list of just exactly what's needed, and then we'll look at what's wanted. 30-gallon containers would seem to be about the consistent product that's out there. Because of the freeze, there's a shortage of 30-gallon trees because that's the age group that got frozen out. So, but there are still a lot of them around. And we're looking at live oak, pecan, crepe myrtle, bur oak, chinkapin oak, bald cypress, and cedar elm. Those are the trees recommended for this area. The trucks can hold maybe up to 200 trees, and that's a 30-gallon tree. So to make it efficient, we need pretty much the largest load we can. Don't know final prices. I got pricing from about 7 different places last week, and we'll see what we can have and pretty much try to get that finalized in the next week or two. We will be attending the Uvalde Hunters Roundup and the Kinney County Hunters Roundup and try to promote our hunting program. Not necessarily for the hunting part, but for the hotel part. Try to get them staying here. So I think we're pretty much full as far as our hunters. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Mr. Peterson, what kind of trees are you, what's the best type of tree you might be able to replant here?
Live oak, pecan, bur oak, chinkapin oak, bald cypress, cedar elm. Those are the ones recommended by the Texas. And anybody wants to look at it, go on to Texas AgriLife, and they have a tree site there that you can look up all the trees. You can put in Kinney County, and it'll tell you everything that'll grow here. It's an amazing site. It's very good backup. And not only trees, it'll go for shrubs or any kind of wildflowers, anything like that, but it will focus just strictly on Kinney County.
And I'd like to note that that's a Texas A&M website.
Yes, it starts off with Texas.
I have a quick question about the adult center.
Yes.
Are they like there all day, every day? You know, is there
In one
an
room.
impact?
Yeah.
Okay, didn't know if there's an impact to close.
It's the same office that was used by the extension agent that is no longer, she moved to
Right.
Dimmitt County, so we don't have an extension agent at the moment, so it's that same office that she was using
I have no idea what that was.
It was one office, was you come in behind, like if you come in the main doors, there's an office right there behind where you would have that check-in area. That's the office that she was using.
So that's what they're using,
It's,
not the
well,
other big room?
they're still using one of the big rooms, just one.
And paying a fee for it,
Right.
per day.
Yeah, it's not free.
Are they there all day? Is it
So far, in that one room.
All right, so a couple of updates. We had a few unfinished items from the last meeting. Wastewater treatment plant. This has actually 2 items. So there's an agenda item number 2. Consider the approval of to revoke policy resolution 2019-7. I'm going to wrap that in under the wastewater treatment area. So that's a document that pertains to our agreement with the utility district. It's been recommended that we take some more time to look at that agreement. So the Fort decided last meeting we have a HOA attorney. Once we start getting into water and utility, that's kind of out of his realm of expertise. So we have enlisted JT Hill out of San Antonio to advise us when it comes to the water issues. And this goes back to the agreement with the utility in the city over the wastewater treatment area. Any questions from the directors about that? No? Okay. Unit 1 parking fees, that was a tabled item. There was going to be some research done. I just think if that's still ongoing.
Still needs to be taken.
Yeah, we'll just leave it as tabled. So the golf tournament fees, we met with the golf committee and they brought in some documentation around the dollars that they had spent. It's approximately $11,000 year to date on different items needed for the course. Bathroom restoration, I believe they bought some fertilizer and a few other items. But the total for that was about $11,000, as was stated in Katie's letter to us for the committee report. They had some homework that they were going to do, put together some information on the tournaments that they hold throughout the year. Once they have that information, we're planning to meet in September to then discuss what we'll do going forward. But any fee adjustments would start in January. And there's still a lot to consider after we get their information for the rest of the board to consider. Any questions there?
Yeah,
Yes.
just for clarification, so if there's a tournament tomorrow, we're not gonna charge $500?
No.
Until after January 1st?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So the email votes that we had, so there were 2 email votes, one for the service club air conditioning, as you heard Mr. Peterson talk about before. We replaced that unit back in March, I believe. We replaced one of the units there. There's a 3-ton and a 5-ton, correct? And we added a 5-ton now. So when we added when we replaced the 5-ton in March,
November?
What we had, when we replaced it, that's when we found out that works.
right, yeah, well so then Director Guzman was at an event there and they were having issues with it. It was hot, but then the next event, it started throwing the breaker with the new, so we replaced it. It was running well. It was 100 for 30 plus days in a row. We had some events. It started to throw the breaker. AC unit or AC group came back and determined that with the new unit, the ductwork was never put in properly, so we needed to adjust the ductwork. So the ductwork had to be replaced, and we also added a 5-ton unit, an additional 5-ton unit. So it now has a 3-ton and 2 5-tons.
Just 2 5-tons.
Oh, we got rid of the 3-ton.
3-ton couldn't be.
Okay, it couldn't be saved. All right.
We couldn't save it for something else?
They were trying to save it for the kitchen.
We're
Yeah.
trying to, that wasn't possible.
So it's trashed?
So far, yeah.
Yeah.
It was probably a 17-year-old unit.
Okay. So it did its duty.
Both of them were between 15 and 17, or 20
Okay.
years old.
Okay, and that leaves us with 20 plus units to go.
Yeah.
Just want to get that clear. Sure.
Just for clarification, I did experience a negative experience at the NCO Club, and I had brought it up to Mr. Peterson's attention. Just an FYI, in the spirit of transparency, we spent $20,000 for the ducting and the air conditioning at the NCO club.
Okay, I'm
The
getting that.
MCO club is a service club, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that was about $20,000 for the service club. So we had an email vote, which we have to read that then into the record. So Directors Race, O'Brien, Huey, and Vale voted yes. And Director Guzman abstained on the service club.
No, I voted yes for the service club.
Okay, I'll have to go back to the notes then. So it was a unanimous vote then?
It was, I don't know what she voted, but I voted yes for the NCO club and no for the fitness center.
Okay, so then it was unanimous for that. For the teen center, which was approximately $9,000, we also had to replace that unit. We had for affirmative votes, Race, O'Brien, and Huey. Director Bale, it was a no for you?
She abstained. And I said no.
Okay, I'm sorry. So Director Guzman voted no, and Director Bale abstained. No. Okay. So we've got a few discussion items. The Preservation Committee, I had sent around some documentation via email, and I don't see it in the packets here, or is it? Okay, it was items that it was a collection of different items. Basically, and we can go back and review it. This is part of the discussion that we need to have with preservation at a later date. Anyways, once y'all are back in session, we'd like to get together. I just wanted to start the conversation now. And basically, the idea for this discussion item was to start to outline the scope of work. I sent you an email this week by mistake on the commissary, and thank you for pointing out, like, that's not one of the buildings that falls under purview, so we adjusted who is responsible for that. But that's what I want to get set out, is basically what is the scope, inside, outside, what is the actual thing, so that everyone can get it documented, so that everyone has a good understanding of what the dollars are going for. I think we're at the point now where we're consistently telling you what the dollars are that you have, and now we'll define what the scope is, and so that just moving forward, we know exactly what to expect, and that way it works with what the vision for the fort's going to be moving forward. So I don't know if there's any other comments or topics that we want to talk about, but that's kind of a later date item. Our committee application form and process. So Chris, you put together an application form. I think we've had 3 people complete it, 4 people complete it now. And if you want to walk us through just the process so that everyone has a good idea of what that will look like. And this is more just for information, so we can make some adjustments if needed.
I didn't print out my process. Okay, basically, there was no formal process for applying to be on the committee. You just kind of put your name in there and it was chosen, is that correct? So we decided to create a form, and the form basically asks your name, your street address, your unit number, so we make sure we get different units, block number if there's a block number, phone number, member number, and an email address. And then what's the vision that you have applying for the art committee? What do you want to see happen? And then the other was experience, and that's credentials, and that's optional. Not everyone has any kind of building experience or anything like that, but it was there if you needed it. And then it was to be submitted to the secretary, either manually to the front desk or via email. So I created 2 forms. One's a manual form that's at the front desk. The other one's an electronic form that can be emailed, filled out as a PDF, saved, and then sent back to me. I received them both ways, and then I PDF'd all of them and gave them to the architectural committee for review. So the next step will be architectural committee recommendations coming back to the board, and then we'll help choose the next people to go on. I believe we need 2 minimum, more, 3 more.
Right, and I think that next part of that process, after they review, then we would have a kind of a question and answer session with the board in executive session.
Right. We have sent our recommendations back to you.
I haven't gotten them. She didn't send them.
They're in here.
That's a hard copy.
No, that's the hard copy.
Oh, that's the hard
That's the
copy.
initial copy. I don't know. Phoebe didn't send me anything back.
We can follow up on that this week and
Yeah, I
we'll-
have the copies of the ones that applied, but I don't have any
Yeah.
recommendation.
We put the recommendations on the bottom.
I didn't receive them, so we'll figure it out. We'll figure that piece out. Yes, there'll be a, basically an interview session, just brief, why are you doing this? Basically, why are you volunteering? And then just go from there. We're solidifying that process, and then it will be a written document, so everyone will know what it is.
Right, we hope to come with a resolution at the next board meeting.
Next meeting.
Yes, so that, and everyone will have time to review that so we can
Right.
move forward with it.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on that? Okay. Next piece is the variances that are brought by the architectural committee. After going through this process over the last few months and looking at what we're doing, there was some question as to why we do these in executive session. And really, for part of what we were doing, I know that Unit 1 had a variance and there were several members of Unit 1 that came to talk to us, and that is one of the things that I think we want to add to the process is if there's going to be a variance in your unit, you should have the ability to at least weigh in on it. And so that begs the question, why are we doing it in an executive session? So we went to the attorney and just quickly asked them, is this something that's necessary to do because it's a person, it's not a personnel issue, it's a member issue. So unless it's requested to be in an executive session where we can do it in open session, which is something that, we should look at as far as our policies going forward. And I think that that's a positive thing to bring it to where it's very open, it's on the agenda as to who needs to come and speak, and if you know that there's going to be a variance in your specific unit, you should have the ability to at least weigh in on it. So, any other comments there? Panic buttons. This is still something that we're waiting on costs from. I completely understand that we're not going to have any documentation. I mean, with school going back into session, there's no way we're going to get anything with them. All the companies that have these buttons are tied up. Yeah, they're swamped at the moment. So, yeah, we're not going to see any resolution to that anytime soon. So we'll stay on that, but it is something that we need to add, just to add to the safety of our board personnel and the membership.
That also goes along with the radios too. There's
Right.
the same situation,
Radios are still,
because they can't get the part, one little
yeah.
receiver.
We actually have the radios. We're waiting on a piece to then connect those radios to the
That's
bridge.
the antenna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And this is the unit that will allow, it will be on the same, the same system as the county, so that will be helpful as well. Committee correspondence. We've been working through a form of the items that we would like from the committees. I believe that's still in progress, and we'll continue to discuss that as a board. Any feedback on what we've seen so far in the email chains on the committee
I haven't
reports?
seen any feedback from anyone.
Okay, okay.
So
I thought
it's
they were
out there.
full.
Okay, good. So yeah, please respond back to Chris so that we can bring something to the membership on the committee correspondence as to what we're going to be asking going forward. One of the other discussion items, I moved this from an agenda item to a discussion item. After going through some of the board trading with UMC and also looking at some of the different boards in the county and the state audits that have been done, if we were to do anything on the approval limits for the GM, we would need a policy resolution to state what that new limit would be. So we need to kind of have a conversation around, yes, do we want to do this or no, decide on what it is, and then bring a policy resolution in order to raise the limit. This was an item that was brought up by Director Mummy. He felt as though the limit needed to be raised so that there could be business done and without having to go to a vote for each and every item. I believe the limit's currently $1,500. And we had talks with somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 as a limit. So my recommendation would be $8,000, but I'll open that up for discussion.
So far, what have, since I've been on, the only thing I've seen is large numbers happen to come through for a vote. How often do we have the lower amount?
We've had several items, like for example, we've got the website coming through. I have no idea what the actual proposal will be like once we get it, but I'm hoping it's under $8,000, but it's definitely going to be more than $1,500. So I'd have to go back and look, but there's been several items that have been right at that number where we've had to vote and.
Air conditioners are been a
Well,
big
it's
one.
like the small air conditioners for the motel. I usually keep a par of 2. Well, we ordered one, and then the second one went out, so basically and I have to inform you all this, the price went up to, when we ordered the second one to keep in par, it went up to $1,600.
So now that's
But we
outside.
actually ordered them separate, but the bill came in the same, so y'all gonna see that. Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, so $1,500, I mean, kind of from an operational level, you've got 37 units that are now
It
$1,600.
needs to be set as replacement or repair items, not necessarily new items, because those would be a capital expense. But if you have something that has to be replaced quickly, that would be.
Okay, I see where you're going. Replacement and repair versus just a capital item. So
Yeah.
all capital items, what is our
Those
capital item limit? What did we, because we set that internally.
We've never said it.
We've never set it. Okay, so maybe that's more work that we need to set our capital expenditure line item as well. And I'm sure that the finance committee would be happy to give us a recommendation on that.
Yes.
In reference to replace, if the item is $9,000, if you have that much leeway, then you can spend up to $9,000 to replace an air conditioner, or if you're gonna fix the air conditioner for $4,000 or $5,000.
Well, that's one of the things that sort of happen around here. There's a lot of things that can be fixed sort of halfway or either quarter way that get you by, that are authorized that never really get fixed. They'll come back down the road and get you later. If it's 9,000 and my limit is 8,000, then I guess that will be going to a vote. If it's the thing of a service club, then, that's not really a question whether we fix it or not, because that's where it is one of our revenue areas. That would have been one that I would have gone ahead and just pulled the plug on and fixed without having to go through the issue of repairing it. But I think we have to get to the point that, and my philosophy is if it breaks, we fix it, and we fix it right. And that's sort of the different philosophy that's been used here. There's tons of equipment around here that breaks and we threw it to the side, and by the time we got around to fix it, it's already rotted out, that it's beyond the point of fixing. So everything's going to be a call on just good judgment.
So it sounds like rather than an approval limit, we need to go further than that and actually put together a policy that determines, what is repair and replacement with a dollar amount that then needs to be brought to the board, and then what's a capital expense, which all capital expenses would come through the board. Okay.
Because, and you said you had probably 15 air conditioners that don't work on the Ford already. Those haven't been working for years, so those would not be a repair or replacement item. Those would have to be capital just to get them back up and running.
Mm-hmm.
That would have to go to a vote, whether it's 6,000 or 7,000, whatever. That's going to be basically, in our situation, that's a new item.
Right.
Yes, it broke and it's been there, and it was working 5 years ago, like the adult center AC there, from what I understand. It was working 3 years ago, but it broke and nobody fixed it.
Right, but this is more covering instances like I don't remember what day the AC went out or was throwing the breakers in the service club, but there was a wedding coming up. And that was a rather large wedding from what I now recall seeing what was out here. So those types of decisions where it's repair and replace, especially for venues that are commercial venues that are bringing in dollars, that are paying for themselves, we replaced that air conditioner in March originally, and it paid for itself in 6 weeks, so, or 8 weeks.
And then it didn't. And the ductwork that was in there was done at the same time that air conditioner was put in there. So that ductwork had been there for 15 to 17 years. And so there's always, and from what I understand, there's always been a problem in the summer there. So now we understand why.
Right.
Would we have enough wiggle room to rescind it if it got out of hand, number one? Number two, if he were to leave and if someone else came in, we would start all over again?
That's why you do it as a policy resolution, so that the next board could say, well, wait a second, we're in a different financial, let's say we have something happen and we become in a situation where our finances are better or worse, then we could either expand the agreement or rescind it. And that's the use of the policy resolution, so that if something does change, that the board can act quickly to change the policy.
If I recall, when Robert Mummy brought up the idea of giving him a little more leeway, it was over some tires for $3,000 or $4,000.
Yeah, we were spending
That was for the
$6,000.
garbage truck.
Yeah, $6,000 I think for, which is again an operational thing. If it breaks on Friday or whatever, and we got trash pickup on Monday, that's kind of an operational issue that needs to happen. So. But we'll work on something and send it around via email for a draft for next meeting. So we got 2 or 3 policy resolutions coming up for next meeting. So any other discussion on that? Okay. All right, the agenda items now. So we've got 3 agenda items. First one is the approval for the assessments versus CPI. There's 2 packets here. Director Bell put one together. Also, there was a set of documents sent around. Those documents included the CPI monthly index 2010 to 2022, just for reference so everyone has the math behind it. Also, the membership assessment from 2010 to 2022. That was a document that we went over a couple of meetings ago. And also the documentation in the declaration that governs this part of the procedure here. So the calculation works out to the index number for June 2022 was 296.311. The June 2021 number was 271,696 for a difference of 24.615. These are the index numbers. So with the membership assessment rate at $47.21 and the residential rate at $42.16, the 9.1 difference in June 2021 to June 2022 would amount to $4.29 on the membership assessment and $3.83 on the residential assessment. The other set of calculations was done on the assessments, owner, charter, FRM, and residential, but with the reduction of the $4 for the restricted fund. That to me, that is a part of your assessment, and when you're doing that, you're asking the preservation committee to not move forward. They've got to, theirs has to be increased too. If historic limestone and whatnot is staying at the regular rate and not, is not affected by inflation, then I could see that. But everything is affected by it. So removing that $4, I think, just doesn't do us justice as to what we're trying to achieve. But we'll open that up to discussion, and we'll need some sort of motion so we can get to discussion.
A motion for an amount?
No,
We just need a percentage. No, we just need, like, if we can have discussion now if you'd like, so we can start with that. So we'll just.
Well, as far as the calculation with the $4, I understand your point, but what documentation do we have in either direction, I guess?
So I have not been able to find, and neither has Mr. Peterson, anything that says that the $4 is what was was actually put together.
When the $4 was set, was when the assessment was 40. So basically, that's what I went with as a 10%.
Yeah, as a 10% mechanism versus like an actual $4, which in the grand scheme of things, having a set amount of $4 in the long term doesn't really make sense. It being a percentage is the way that you would operationally work. I mean, you wouldn't just say $4 from here until forever.
It was set as $40 was your assessment, and $4 was that, and 25% of that was going to the preservation or historical. So what I have been doing is doing 10% of the assessments, which it can be, I mean, it can be floated around however you want to do it, and then 25% of that, which was already stated. So the only difference I did is change it from $4 to 10%. And it has gone up for the last 6 months like that.
My question, just for, to make sure we do this right, is what, where is it stated? Is it a policy resolution? Is it, because I couldn't find it.
There is.
We
there
can't
is-
find it stated
We
anywhere.
can't find it anywhere.
Okay.
So the assessment as it stands is $47.21 for membership, and residential is $42.16.
So what's the total, $8.02?
So the total would be $429 and $383. 812, yes. So just from a overall perspective, revenue generation on the membership portion, that would bring in $7,690 a month. On the residential side, it would bring in $3,230 a month. If we refer back to the last chart, or excuse me, the second to last chart that was presented last meeting, total revenue change year over year, you are approximately $10,613.92 behind where you were in 2010. So bringing in this dollar amount would bring you slightly above where we were collecting dollars in 2010. So we're getting back to an even standpoint. I think that we've looked through, we have all of the budgets year to date. We've been hurt by the revenue not coming in from the RV park. That's also hurt at the motel, although we've been able to keep that up with DPS. We can see the effects of not having a revenue stream and to rely on that to pay for what we have to cover as an HOA. Just for reference, when we looked at budgets last year, the HOA itself was about $360,000 at a deficit if you did not take any money from the hunts, from the motel, the RV park, or anything like that. With the increase that we did last year, that cut that number to about $300,000. And then if you wanted to continue to kind of whittle away at that number, if you took 20% and assessed, okay, so you take 20% of the HOA expenses and you assess that towards the hunt, towards the motel, the RV park, and the golf course, then that left you with about $170,000 of a deficit. So an increase of about $11,000 a month is going to get you right around your $26,000 to cover that deficit, and you'd now be even. So
What was the total amount the board approved last year that we put on?
5.1, 5.3, I believe is the percentage.
It was $5?
No, percentage wise.
It was 2, so it was 4
It's
something.
4 something,
450,
yeah.
around 450.
Just 4 something.
Can I talk about reserve planning?
Sure.
The number one thing we need to be doing is reserve planning. That has not been done here for years. I've been studying HOA management because they make me. And a fair reserve would be 50% funded, reserve funded. Poor would be 30%. Strong would be 70%. Of course, 100% is fabulous. And we guesstimate, Mr. Peterson, we're at 10%.
We're not better than 10%.
That's scary. And so it's now time to start thinking about doing what we need to do is increase the assessments, compound them from one year to the next. That has not been done here. They've done special assessments, 1%, and then it disappears. We're right back to where we were the year before with no increase. So that's what we're considering.
Out of this percentage, that if we were to approve the $8, how much do you think that's gonna go up? Right now, it's 10%. What is your anticipated increase for next year?
What do you mean?
For the reserve, you said it's
Well,
10%.
no, we're saying it's no more than 10%. And so let's take a step back and talk about what the reserve is. So we talked about the 20+ air conditioners that we have on the fort. If all 20 of those air conditioners were in service, each year you would take your capital expense that you spent to put that machine into service, and you would say its life expectancy is 5, 10, 15, whatever it is, right? You do that with vehicles, you do that with all of your equipment that you have on the fort. Each year, you know what should, the life expectancy, so you're gonna have a cost of what that is. So when you look at, let's say 2023, if we had a full reserve study done, there would be a number that would be there to say this is what we have to cover in that year, and then this is what we have on the books. Also, that coincides with what your depreciable value is when you bring in your depreciation. So those two numbers should be the same. When you do that, when we're talking about 10%, of the dollars that we have that we need to spend right now, if we look at 2022 or 2023, the number of dollars that we need to bring everything back into commission is going to be way higher than what we have. We probably have 10% of what we need in order to do that.
I know, but she stated, I'm just trying to get a clarification, she stated we're about more or less 10%. The ideal situation is 30 or 40 or 50%.
Well, yeah.
What
It was
is it?
70.
Okay, 70, okay, so out of the $8 we're gonna take for the membership, what do you think, what's an idea of what would be
Well,
our
it
next year?
it doesn't just come from that.
So we can be
It's
back
not,
at 10%
but it's
next
not that, it's not straight math like that.
Okay.
So what you would do is something that has to be decided as well. When you bring in the hunt, okay, how much of that money do you put away to invest in the assets of the hunt, right? And so by not taking that money from those commercial areas, that's where you're going to start funding your reserve. So we can't give you a number as to what we will be at next year, because this is not in order to create the reserve. This is to stop stealing from the reserve.
Yeah, and probably one of the better examples, if you do not have a fully funded reserve, the only way you can survive is basically making your assets stretch out 10 years longer than they're supposed to, which is why you have cars that drive around for security that have lights that flash on and off at night because they don't have electrical problems. It's why you're working with equipment in the maintenance shop that should have been thrown away 20 years ago, but we keep making it work, but it's not efficient. If you had a fully funded reserve the way it's supposed to be, you have a list, and if it's in good shape, okay, then that's a good thing for your reserves. You extend it a little bit longer. But we're to the point right now that we're 20 years behind replacing stuff that should have been replaced because it's never been replaced. So that's why you have to have a reserve schedule to understand just exactly how long. If an air conditioner is set at a 10-year lifespan and it actually can go for 15, that helps your reserve study out. That would be your 70% funded that you're making some money back home. If it only lasts for 10, then you pretty much have to have the money to replace it then. It goes away for everything here. Your roofs, everything roof is usually 25 to 30 years. Your roads were done at 30 years. Obviously, we don't have the money to replace the roads because we never put money into a reserve.
And so your reserves are going to come from your motel, from your commercial areas. And so let's just say that we have a pipe break. Well, even if we decided to put 20% of or 25% of the revenue, the gross revenue from the motel, if we don't get the revenue, then we're not going to be able to fund the reserve. So I can't give you a number as to what we would be able to do. What I can tell you is that once we are covering the HOA expenses, then we can start to use the income from the commercial areas to build the reserve as it should have always been done. But currently we're using those dollars for